if you hate diesel emissions equipment and you're tired of buying diesel exhaust fluid at the store to pour into the tank, listen up. This could be the biggest news so far this year from the Trump administration on making changes to that system. I'm talking about the 2009 Endangerment Finding. This could have a big impact on not just diesels, but a lot of the other industries in the country. Hey, it's Tim, Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. The news kind of broke overnight. I'm going to get to it first thing this morning. So I have just multiple news sources pulled up this morning because there's a draft letter from the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, from new EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, talking about repealing the 2009 Endangerment Finding. If you don't know what this is, it's a really big deal. Huge deal. It underlines many of the climate change laws that came in place since 2009. It also created the need for the diesel emissions equipment in trucks as we've started putting them in or phasing them in over the prior years going forward from the 2009 finding. So let's talk about what this is. We'll talk about how it could be changed and what you need to know. So first of all, let's do the obvious thing. What is endangerment finding? And real quick, the endangerment finding was a declaration by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency that has 6 key greenhouse gases endanger public health and welfare. Health and welfare, very key. This finding, made in the Clean Air Act, is a fundamental element for regulating greenhouse gas emissions in the United States and directly linked to subsequent clean or climate policies. So basically identified carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbons, whatever, all this kind of stuff that I really can't say. So all this stuff, as you see, carbon dioxide emissions, methane, NOx gases, sound familiar? A lot of this stuff is your diesel emissions equipment. They take it out of the air, the port of death meets with the chemicals in the exhaust and takes it out of the air. So because automotive and transportation is a huge part of the overall emissions in this country, planes, boats, automobiles, everything, commercial, they targeted those systems and added diesel exhaust emissions because we use a lot of diesel in this country for transport to clean the air. Gasoline vehicles got hit as well. They got hit too. So that was a key finding. And so if they get rid of that finding, take the emissions equipment off because you don't need that. They're not going to regulate that finding. But there's some problems with this idea of just getting rid of the finding, because did somebody at the EPA just get a wild hair up their butt and say, let's just write this finding, let's be done with it, back 2009? Not so fast. That's not actually what happened. So what did happen, if you don't recall, back in 2009? So I've been doing this job 15 years. This was before I started doing this job. This ruling came out, and I learned a lot over the last couple of months now talking about this stuff. This came out, I'm going to go back to the story, was a result of a 2007 Supreme Court decision. Okay. It was Massachusetts versus the EPA. Actually was a variety of other states too. So what Massachusetts had said was, hey guys, and I'll paraphrase this for you guys, said, hey guys, our fishing industry is struggling. They saw that the number of fish in the ocean in their coastline was becoming less. Fishermen were coming back with less catch. The fisheries are having less fish to process. Their industry, their public welfare was going down because of rising ocean temperatures. So they looked at temperatures, they took temperatures for a while, they realized, hey, temperatures going up, fish are dying, our fishermen have to go out further, they're making less money, we're being impacted by the rising temperatures. And my favorite show, the Alaskan king crab fisherman show, those guys talk about it as well. They've had fishery go down a couple of years because they actually lost king crab because they went to colder waters because the waters around Alaska got too hot. So this has happened, and Alaska fishermen, Maine fishermen had this happen to them, and Maine joined with other states and sued the EPA because they wanted the EPA to look into greenhouse gas emissions and how those impacted ocean temperatures. Back then in 2007, 8, 5, and the 2000s, I'll just say it like this, the science wasn't very clear. It was sort of clear, wasn't very clear. They kind of thought that climate change was impacting the ocean temperatures. They talked about some jet streams in the water. It wasn't very clear. Well, they went to the court findings, and the Supreme Court said, along with the EPA in the room and all the defendants, said, you know what? You need to mandate this. You need to look at this. If the EPA's job is clean air, clean water, and to improve the public health and welfare of people in the country, then the EPA needs to work on improving the public welfare and the people of Massachusetts, because Massachusetts is the state of the United States. So that created the 2009 Endangerment Finding. And that was a key part in creating diesel exhaust emissions. Okay, diesel exhaust equipment, I should say more accurately. So they started measuring greenhouse gas emissions, carbon dioxide, NOx gases, the pollutants that were causing the ocean temperatures to rise. So since then, we've had all these climate change initiatives go through Congress, or go through the EPA, and the EPA has gone through and made these changes, and they've made changes to monitor this stuff. So what's interesting about what has happened is, since that case, we talked about this, we've had exhaust equipment come out, DEF come out later on. We've started knocking down the amount of carbons coming out of the of diesels. We've had a really big focus on this. And so there's a lot of challenges to now going back. First, it was the agency's got to repeal their rule, and they did it a certain way. And there's some logistic stuff about this as far as from a legislative standpoint. Secondly, the rule was centered on the agency's fact finding. So the EPA is going to have to go back and declare that the facts they declared in 2007, 2008, that the Supreme Court told them you need to look at these facts closer. They have to go back and look at those facts again and say those facts were wrong. So the EPA is going to declare that they were wrong in 2007, 2008, and the facts were not correct. That's going to be a hurdle. And then it's got to reconsider any reliance interest to the original rule. It's got to look at all the interests and say, yeah, we were wrong in 2007, 2008. The Massachusetts fishermen and Alaska fishermen are flat out wrong. They're not getting less fish because the ocean temperature is getting hotter. They're just liars. And there's no other interests that are being impacted by climate change rules. That nobody is having a problem with the warmer temperatures. That nobody's public health or welfare is being impacted. They have to make sure that there's no other interest impacted. And then once you get past those two things, they're going to have a problem with the fact that Chevron was overturned. So now they're not experts anymore. So they're going to have a really hard time going back and reinterpreting their own rules, because with Chevron made the change that said they couldn't make their changes to their rules. So it's quite another thing that says when the government seeks to undo its own statutory interpretation, because now Chevron's not allowing them to make interpretations or laws, they have to go back to Congress. And so Congress is going to have to say that the Supreme Court in 2007 was wrong. The facts in 2007 were wrong. There's no interest or being impacted by public welfare and health from the climate change. And the 2009 Endangerment Finding is going to get repealed. That's the whole enchilada. And one more thing, automakers are ready to delete the diesel equipment already. They do this for military vehicles that are serving in combat overseas. I covered that story before on this channel several months ago. Those trucks ship from factory without diesel emissions equipment. Now, it is illegal to delete your diesel equipment currently in the United States. There's a gray area that if you don't get caught, it's not illegal. I get that. But it is currently under U.S. law illegal to delete your diesel trucks in the United States. Let me just be very clear about that. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I'm also saying that when this all comes out, you guarantee there's going to be lawsuits like crazy. But this right here, like I said, if you don't like diesel exhaust equipment, because you're also going to tell me, it sucks for the Massachusetts fishermen, but it also sucks for those who are over-the-road truckers or long-distance haulers who have to deal with these systems that break down on them, that cost them money and their livelihood, because they feel like these systems, and I hear it in the comments all the time, these systems are unreliable, that all diesel emissions equipment is unreliable. So they're taking money out of their pocket to pay for these systems. So we have two competing interests. We have farmers, ranchers. The farmers around here are talking all the time about climate change. Farmers, ranchers, fishermen going, that's a bunch of crud. We're losing our livelihood because of, I got to spend more money on water. I got to go out further to go fishing. I have less fish to catch. And we have the diesel truck owners who are saying these systems are unreliable. I got to spend more money to fix my truck. This is BS. I'm gonna be out here in flat land, Nebraska, with no oceans, and I'm just gonna watch it all go on up in chaos because it's gonna be interesting to watch what's gonna happen. I don't know if it's gonna be settled in the next 3 or 4 years, but I guarantee you there's gonna be 1,000 more YouTube videos about this. I just want to go on record and just tell you exactly what's going on, the significant hurdles to get this overturned. And if it does get overturned, the EPA is going to be reshaped for the first time in my lifetime in a major way. A huge reshaping the EPA will happen if that 2009 endangerment finding gets overturned. So grab a bag of popcorn. It's going to get interesting. For more, check out videos over here, website down below as well, pickuptrucktalk.com. As always, thanks for watching. I will see you down the road.